Hi, everybody. My name is Jared Molat.
My name is Mateo Galis, not
And
Mateo Galis.
this is the Coltist, episode 14. And starting this podcast off here saying, first of all, it's December 1st, uh, Wednesday evening prior to the Hard Knocks episode that's about to come out. And then we took a week off. You took a little hike. We took a week off.
Yeah,
We took a week off for the holiday. And the Colts defense took a week off and dropped a winnable game at home against the Bucks. So there's that.
yeah, we all know by now that once again, blown double-digit lead.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, an offense like puts 30 plus on us. So yeah, what's new? Same old, same old.
Right. And it's just, it's just like, we talked about before we started recording this podcast. The problem with the Colts defense is that they're not generating enough pass rush. Good quarterbacks get a little time in the pocket and they're gonna dissect your bad defense. And a lot of what ends up happening on film, it looks like, oh, they got a leak dump off for plus yardage when it really they're fine. Opposing teams are fine with this. The Colts have given up through 12 games the fourth most yards of any team in the NFL. So I know after last game, everyone, including Frank Reich, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, felt like the play calling had something to do with the outcome. And we'll get to that. But I think it's just like we've started out this podcast. This defense has regressed. That's a fair thing to say, right? When we've played against reasonable offenses, it's a dumpster fire. It's an absolute train wreck. We are on our heels from moment one to the end of the game, just hoping to God there's no way they're putting 40 up, right? That's literally what it feels like. Like, oh, it doesn't matter how the game begins. And that was kind of, and it's kind of crazy about the Colts is they have kind of become a first half team where they come out hot, control the game on all sides. They've got it held together with glue, apparently. And at halftime, they get a little cold in the locker room, right? They come out in
Yeah,
the
and they
second
come out and
half.
they just you remember with Pagano, like the issue was that the Colts were a second half team.
Yeah.
They always started out slow and then picked
Mhm.
up steam and then just came back. Now it's
Yeah.
like the opposite. That are we missing Pagano?
Well, hey, I'll
No.
say this as somebody
Not
who
even
was
kidding.
definitely not a fan of Chuck Pagano while he was here. I don't dislike him. Like I've seen him on Pat McAfee's podcast. I'm like, I would probably ride or die
Yeah.
for him. I'd probably play for him. He's a good dude. But the thing about this is that when it comes to the NFL and the future of the NFL, it's a lot needs to change for the Colts. As far as coaching this game, it's got to fucking change, man. You got to get more consistent play out of your players. You can't just give up the grip like the Colts did. Like we had the game in the bag and just straight
Yeah.
up gave it away. And it wasn't like it was, oh, Sendejo gave up 2 touchdowns over his head. It's all his fault. No, it was like Nyheim Hines fumbled a punt and gave them a touchdown. Like that ultimately gave up the score.
Eric Fisher just seemingly took a play off and
Got beat,
like
gave
the
up a
strip
strip
sack.
sack.
Michael
And like,
Pittman like got beat by you have like what was it like 6 inches on the guy? And he beats you on the jumble, like that's just inexcusable. No matter how underthrown the football is. Just can't happen, man.
right. And I think what ends up happening is when your team loses a game like this, people want to point fingers, right?
Yeah.
And I think that what we've said all along is, given this situation, Carson Wentz has played above the board for the larger part of the season. And what we found out in a game you were in control of, that your quarterback has no sense of balance, of offensive balance.
Yeah.
That he does not understand that he has one superstar on his team, and that's Jonathan Taylor. And he has a bunch of liability otherwise. And I love the Colts offense. I think it's dynamic. I think that they're capable of being like, I mean, they are top 5 in the league, but they're bottom 5 in defense. So it's like, the reality is if I were gonna gripe if I step back, take my Colts hat off, turn it backwards, and just about the shield, the problem in that game was the Colts defense. And that you gave the ball, you had 5 turnovers. And again, it wasn't these players that, for the whole season we've been talking about, the Colts don't have shit at safety and cornerback, and they don't have pass rush. It's your left tackle that you paid a bunch of money for. It's your quarterback fumbling a football. It's your running back, Nyheim Hines, you just paid a bunch of money to, fumbling that football. And I think discipline gets lost in repetition. And what happens is that over the course of a football season, it becomes lousy. Your preparation gets lousy because it's such a rep-based reps equal success in this sport. As far as like fielding punts, I'm willing to bet you somewhere along the way, Nyheim Hines has lost the sort of grip he had on what he was doing for this team. And I think it's a role change as a result of Jonathan Taylor sort of stepping up and becoming what he's become. Could be sort of a shock to anyone. And I think if you're watching the Colts, to talk about what you had said before we went on this podcast, let us not forget, right? You finished that. Chris Ballard said at the beginning of this year,
that this was always going to be an evaluation year. This is not the year we're supposed to win it all.
So if that's what we're doing, then holy crap, Jonathan Taylor, man, that's what a get. Okay, cool. Obviously going to have to protect this quarterback, because what we do know about him is that he has a tendency to not be very accurate, especially when under duress or in times of need, right? Where you really need him to be wired tight. He has the propensity to be errant. And that's why he didn't play D1 ball. So I think much higher of Carson Wentz than most people probably think I do, but I think I also have a much more level-headed expectation out of him. I think that he has the capability of being a first quadrant quarterback, and that he will play himself into a second quadrant rating. Right now, he's like 10th in the league. I'm still sitting perfectly. He's a second quadrant quarterback that's very capable of being a top 8, top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And that's not to say he's
did
great.
Win an MVP award. He was the MVP of the league at one point. So
that's what I'm saying.
He has the potential.
He has the potential, but he'll play himself out of it. And that's not to say the Colts aren't capable of winning games. I legit believe the Colts pushed the defending world champion to that was like a 75-point game. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot to be said. It was like a 70-point game, but there's a lot to be said for pushing the world champion to have to sort of like bring out all the guns, right? But I'll keep saying it every week that it keeps happening. The Colts can't stop what the opposing offense wants to do.
No, yeah.
Whatever.
Unless they are the Texans,
and they don't have a legitimate, they don't have a Hopkins. They don't have a, you know what I mean? But if they did, Hopkins would have 100 fucking catches, man. Like he could do whatever he wants against the Colts. That's just how it is. And I get it. It almost feels like we've forgotten that this is like supposed to be entertaining, right? So it's almost like your ineptitude is supposed to be ha funny. It just doesn't feel like that. It feels like these games are close enough that they're winnable. And that's what I think the problem is when we say it's an evaluation year, automatically it means it's like, Well, now we just get to fuck it up all the way around and not really care about,
Yeah, but that's not.
did we make
Yeah,
a
that's not how it
coaching error?
works.
Did we make a coaching error, right? That cost us a football game? Or are we just chalking it up to it's an eval year? Because that's lousy, right? Because now we're just
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
like, we don't care about these people's bodies that they put out here, put on the line every week. We don't care about outcomes. We care about player development, right? And this is a long-term thing. It's like I said, I think that this organization has come to the harsh realization that you can have as many good players as you want, but wherever your weaknesses lie is where you're going to lose. You know what I mean? And then that's the sort of situation the Colts are in now, where your back
yeah,
end, your secondary, your lack of pass rush is just giving teams time to develop their offensive game plan over the course of a game. And you see teams struggle against the Colts early, and then as the game comes along, their offense takes off. And it's because the Colts are doing the same sorts of things over the course of a game that eventually get used to, and you can adapt your offense to beat that. And again, it's sort of a acknowledging deficiency in personnel, and then saying
yeah,
it can be, I'm not really in love with the defensive system the Colts play. It's just and again, I think it has a lot to do with personnel. Is going to end up like what kind of coverages you play on certain downs and distances, of what players are capable of doing. But yeah, for example, last week it just felt like if the Bucs tried to run it twice in a row, the Colts stuff it, and they'd probably force a 3-and-out there.
yeah,
But there would come downs, there would come whole series where it would go decent run, incomplete pass to a wide receiver, first down to Gronk. Nice
yeah.
run, incomplete pass elsewhere, first down to Gronk.
First down to
And that
Gronk. Yeah,
happens a couple times, and it covers 40 plus yards, and it happens a couple times in a game. It's backbreaking. And why is that? That's because a slow player has the ball in the middle of the field. That means everybody on that field is an eligible tackler. That means everybody's expending a bunch of energy to try to get to Gronk, right? And if you do that 4 or 5 times in a game, it'd take a wind out of a defense. Because on most other plays where the ball goes and who has it takes guys out of the play, where they're like, I'm there's no way I'm getting that, making that
yeah,
tackle,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Might
But
might as well, you know.
yeah, but with a guy like Gronk running right down the middle of that defense, once he touches the ball, he's the worst player to have the ball on the field, because everybody now has to track him. And
Yeah,
when
and everybody has a
everybody's
chance.
tracking him, once the play's dead, and you see everybody on that defense, like, damn, he's a big dude. Shoo! Like, you realize, like, oh, that's a dagger, and that's how teams are going to beat you. Is they're going to make you stop the run. They're going to flex and try to hit their other receivers, right? But then they're going to beat you where they know they can. And it happens so frequently that you're like, man, all I got to do is find out where my mismatch is and make sure I save that until I need to hit it. Third down's great, right? Or got to have this touchdown. And think about how many times like teams got to score a touchdown on this drive or this play, and it just feels like Colts defense is a wet paper bag,
Yeah.
right? It's because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all
They're
you
not
got to do
stopping
is
anyone.
figure
Yeah.
out when we line up in this formation, this is how the Colts defense lines up. So I figure while we're talking about last week, let's talk about this RPO situation with the Colts.
Yeah, you're the expert here, you know.
So Frank Reich comes out after the game. I've never seen this in my whole life, by the way. Been watching football on television, man, since the 80s. And I've never seen a coach come out and say, all right, so people are media, so he's addressing the media, right? Are saying, we mismanaged the workload for Jonathan Taylor. And first of all, I want to tear apart his data and tell him that his data was shit. And this is why. He says they called 15 RPOs in the second half of that football game. Okay. No, you didn't. That's a lie. And then 8 of those were dedicated dedicated balls to Jonathan. 3 of them passes, 5 of them runs.
Yeah.
That's not true. So he lied multiple times in that scenario. That's all bullshit data. That's not what happened. Go back and watch film. I went and looked. That's not true. None of that shit was true. That was called fluff. He was just saying that shit to get the focus on him.
Yeah, to get defense and to get defense of his back, perhaps, you know what I'm saying?
No, to get him on his
Well,
back. He's diving on a grenade. What he is
Yeah.
saying, what he was doing was saying, pay attention to me, right? Don't pay attention to the fact that this defense has regressed. And that if this defense was doing its thing, we're winning some of these games that we're dropping. And like I said, when it counts, the Colts defense is just a wet paper bag. And I get it. It's
Yeah.
guys like Darius Leonard are dinged up. Their pass rushers are young. Last week,
Yeah, what?
DeForest
Nah,
Buckner
I
gets
don't know.
dinged up, right? But
Like, I mean, not to hate, not to keep on hating on the poor guy, because God knows I have been harsh on him, but AQM, you know, playing 85% of the snaps on the most, not the most, but one of the most meaningful games of the season. He had, I believe it was like 57 snaps.
Mhm.
He had no pressures, 0.
Yeah.
No,
But I think that
stops on the run game, no play. He's just like, he's,
the
I mean, I
space
could
eater.
go in and he's just there, you know. Like, and that's one of the. You have basically a non-factor on one of the most important spots of the defense. Well, you can't afford to have a non-factor on the edge. You need a guy that either can pressure or blow up run plays. AQM does neither.
I mean, you're not lying.
And if
And
you,
then you've
yeah,
got
and if
you've got safeties that are neither effective in the run nor effective on the deep ball and protecting their zone, or continually giving up the deep ball and letting guys get over the top on them. Like we've said, if a team has to get a ball to a guy, the safety's not making a play.
yeah,
He's not coming in there and guessing correctly. And there's been some balls caught specifically over the middle this year that I'm angry that he didn't catch a lick there. He didn't actually get hit. He just got to catch that ball and go down. And again, I think it's a bad defensive system. I think the Colts need to evolve. I don't know what the solution is, but I know that when I watch teams play against the Colts, they got to get crafty, and I kind of dig that style, the sort of willing to do anything to generate an outcome I'm looking for on defense, right? Like you see teams struggling to generate pass rush, putting 6 guys on a line of scrimmage and all blitz, right? And man the outside and force that ball to the inside. You know what I mean? Like do whatever they can do. But like I
do
said,
you ever just like feel like the Colts on defense just take like a wait and see approach, where if the opponent makes a mistake, you know, they're like, they can't capitalize on it, but they are not going to force a mistake. They are not going to make a play. They're like they are not on the attack on defense. That's the thing I hate.
yeah, no, they're playing this sort of pensive defense where you know, there have been a million cliches coined around the style of defense the Colts play as an organization. This bend don't break, this we'll let them check us down to death. Outstanding run defense, 30th ranked pass defense, no pass rush since Robert Mathis, or Dwight Freeney. I mean, really, this whole conversation, this whole season struggle right here. Do you know why this isn't a Super Bowl season?
Why not?
Ryan Grigson. If you think about the time frame he coached here, those players he didn't get. I'm thinking specifically about Bjorn Werner, that Florida State product the Colts drafted to be a pass rusher, and he washed completely out of the league. But if you think about if they had gotten a guy, he would be like 7 years into his career, like right about the 29, 30 year old mark. as a defensive pass rusher. And I just like to think about if that had been somebody else, what might have been, right? But yeah, that's the kind of things I kind of think about every now and then. I'm like, man, Ryan Grigson sucked. And now we're paying for it.
He won. Well, where's your mouth? You're talking about the NFL executive of. He won like GM of the year, right? First season.
Did he win that off the back of drafting Andrew Luck and then
Yeah,
and him
it
taking it in
was
playoffs?
Luck. No, remember that it was Luck, T.Y. Hilton, Kobe Fleener was looking like a decent weapon. Dwayne Allen was looking like a decent tight end. Yeah, well, that looked like in the end it was nothing, but at first looked good. Kobe Fleener brings back the memories.
Yeah, back when the Colts might have actually been worse. I'm just kidding. The Colts are definitely worse. But yeah, so the thing that obviously I'm in jest saying they had eight plays out of 15 in the second half drawn up for Jonathan Taylor, and for the record, also slipped in there that with the quarterback went away from him. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to speak from experience and get this out to the people listen to our podcast. When it comes to this RPO game, first of all, most of the time you're going to decide where you throw that ball before the snap. The way that I taught my left-handed quarterback to throw an RPO was tight end right, running back to his left, so that the running back crosses his face. That's the action. He hides the action, right? And then what we're keying on pre-snap is the outside linebacker to my quarterback's left, my left-handed quarterback. So we could flip it. If he's a right-handed quarterback, you want your tight end left. You're keying on an unblocked defensive end play side to like the quarterback's right post snap. But pre-snap, you're deciding if I'm throwing where I'm throwing based on who has off coverage to my play side. So generally, let's pretend that we have tight end right, single receiver right. So we would call this like tight spread, right? So you have a tight end left, a wide receiver left, and two wide receivers on the right, and I have a right-handed quarterback. The quarterback post snap is staring at the play side defensive end. If he crashes down, he pulls the ball and he already knows where he's throwing that, because pre-snap what he looked at was which my slot or my outside receiver, which guy has off coverage. And then based on which the play that was called, I'm thinking about which route is out breaking or back breaking and has off coverage. It's a guaranteed completion if that end crashes down, right? So pre-snap, I already know how I'm throwing to based on who has off coverage and who has an off or they're coming back to the ball sort of route, like a hitch or an out are good examples from the slot or the outside receiver. It doesn't matter. The slot or the out route are good examples here. And then all that happened is, and I've been saying this all along, the quarterback who loves Jesus is the most dangerous RPO player in the world, because he has confidence in himself and he believes in himself and he believes in his coaches and the men that are around him that pray with him before games. And what they're telling him is, if you see this, throw this. And I promise you, if you put a man with an ego and you tell him you can call your number, if this happens, you can call your number.
He's going to call his own number.
He's going to call his own number
90% of the time.
So with my experience with the RPO, we installed it, we ran it in a scrimmage, and we uninstalled that shit. And we said, now hold on. What it's going to do is it's going to kill our tempo. It's going to kill our spread, how we're spreading the ball out. Oh my God. It happened in a football game where you saw someone get RPO happy. So the Colts were having some success. You heard Frank Reich talk about 7, 6, 11, 9, incomplete. That's a 7-yard average. Baby, we were good, right? That's what Frank Reich said. But the truth, I don't believe that either. See, what I believe is that 1 out of every 3 plays you run on offense needs to be a plus play. And a plus play is like 5 or more yard a run, an 8 or more yard pass. You got to staying ahead of the chains is important. Getting easily into scoring range is what you want to be. You want to be putting points on the board frequently. You got to get in scoring range. But more importantly, you can't get down in the red zone without a plan. So we gotta tell Colts fans what the Colts are doing well, because otherwise it's all doom and gloom, right? So the Colts are really good in the red zone, by the way. They're worth modeling your offense after in the red zone. The only thing that I don't like, again, is that sort of gunslinger mentality in my red zone. When I get in the red zone, I happen to believe that's the hardest job in sports, is scoring from first and 10 inside the 10-yard line. Try to score on that defense because everything is tight. That nobody wants to throw the goal line fade no more. It's just the truth. Nobody wants to throw that no more.
You know what? I always felt like, start to think about it. You remember like the early season struggles in the red zone? I remember thinking like goal line fade is such an overpowered play to Madden. Like, does it not work in real life? You have a guy that's 6'4" in Michael Pittman. You have a tight end. Mo Cox is what, like 7 feet?
Yeah, he's like 37 feet tall with his arms extended.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Put it up there, give them a chance.
I don't know.
Did you know, perhaps you did not know this, but did you know that Mo Cox used to play basketball, in case you never heard it?
Oh. It hadn't been bludgeoned into my brain yet by every shock jock that Indy has to offer.
Every time he makes a catch, former basketball player.
But yeah, the problem with the RPO at the NFL level is that teams play the same coverage in every play. So just like we're talking about how the Colts secondary is essentially just a wet paper bag, man, they're terrible on defense, is because they probably have the same coverage and alignment every play, and they're the same different distance off the ball or off the player that they're guarding. They're telegraphing their defense. They're making it so that RPA game looks really clean for the Colts. It really does, and I get it. When the Colts are feeling themselves on this RPO game, but the problem is your run has to be devastating. You have to be undeniable. And what I believe, and again, I'm willing to sit on islands. I'll do it. But when you're carrying the rock 4.5 yards a carry, baby, we're running the ball. I don't know what anyone, I'm not on this boat where people are willing to take away runs to justify arguments. And there were multiple people and people we work with, but I ain't naming names. We don't do that here. But there are people we work with that say things like, well, if you take away this 16-yard run and you take away this 15-yard run, the Colts only average like 3 points up in yards per carry. And it's like, why would you take away runs to justify arguments? Look at the whole game. The Colts averaged 4.5 yards per carry in the run. So here's what I'm saying. Carson Wentz likes calling his own number, can't stand it that Jonathan Taylor is the MVP, and pulls the ball, throws it because he's justified. And he will get to sit and film this week, and Frank Reich will feel like, man, look how smart my quarterback looks, making all them rat decisions. And here's me, lowly old me, sitting here saying, bitch, every NFL defense runs the same coverage and alignment every play. So if you want to run your little RPO and get 6 yards a catch, guess what, baby? You can do that. But you know what's going to happen? You're going to make a mistake. You're going to get a negative play, and you're going to be sitting at 3rd and fucking 11 7 times during a game, and you're not going to convert but 30% of those on me because you are only getting one good play on me. You're not running on my team. Your RPO might get you 6 yards, but I'm going to fuck up whatever that other play is. I promise you. And that's the way these teams are coaching against the Colts now, is they realize you got to stamp out that run game. So we got to hit that running back a few times. They'll go away from him if he's having a bad name, because this is a data-driven team. This is what the Colts do. And this is what a lot of teams do. This is what a lot of teams do. This is what a lot of coaches do. For example, I'm going to pick on the guy I coached for. Okay. Guy I coached for, 20 years of coaching experience, multiple coaching titles. I come into his league and I start watching film. And I say, you know how you beat these teams at the semi-pro level? Get the defense running side to side. Jet sweeps, pitches, the option, get these big boys running. They'll run them out of gas and we can do whatever we want on them. There were games where we absolutely did that. We could do we could have literally closed my eyes and dropped a coin on my call sheet and picked a play, and we could have run it and then run it for positives. But there were also games where this team runs a 6-1 front, plays man up on your corners, and has, you know what I mean? Like they're just playing a very hard defense to scheme against, but that isn't happening in the NFL. So this is what is going to continue to happen. And Frank Reich did say that too. This is what we're going to do. We're going to just keep doing it. It's going to keep happening like this. The Colts are going to come out red hot. They're going to come out and put points up on people, and then they're going to let up, and then they're going to let teams back into games, and they're going to get beat, and then they're just going to say it was an evaluation year. And when they're hot, they're masking. They don't have a plan to play for 4 quarters. That's not in the cards. That's not what this team's doing. They've done it. They show the ability to do it, but having the ability to do something and then actually being able to do it consistently is the difference between greatness and just being good, you know? And I think like a 6-6 team with the potential to make a playoff run is a good football team, but that ain't great, you know?
Yeah.
And I think like there's a future for the Colts to be great and consistent, but there's a lot of things with this org that have to be acknowledged.
I
right?
don't think they will. That's my fear.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think they're going to get more of the same ad infinitum, right? I think in 10 years we'll be saying the same thing. Man, we should have changed that defensive scheme annals ago. And then offensively, I feel like while we appear innovative and on paper put up yards on everybody and points on everybody, again, I'm still going to keep hammering the cannot score, cannot fire at will. It's like we're playing inside this war will be fought within the confines of the Geneva Convention. You know what I mean? We're not doing anything we can to win. That's how it feels. Well, when we started off the season, it was, we're not scoring points when we can, right? When we should score points. Now it's, we can't score points when we have to. And, or we give the ball away when we really can't afford to. Again, I feel like it's some weird messaging on the team that I hope an off season can fix. You know what I mean? I hope for the Colts that they can see what we can see. Right. And we have to acknowledge, the Colts are 5-1 when we put on an episode of the Coltist.
Yeah.
So I mean,
we're almost, If we don't keep it going, if we lose against the Texans, I don't believe there are any more excuses to make for Frank Reich or this season.
if you drop this, somehow manage to lose this game to Texans, I absolutely
I
don't see that coming. I don't see that.
That's not gonna. Well, you never know. Taylor, he's been playing really well, but there is no way.
Yeah, I'm a Tyrod Taylor fan too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the Colt. If Ty is playing and it's in Houston, you already know, right?
Hopefully he can have like his perhaps like a going out game, like his way of saying goodbye, one last dance in Houston. I don't think he's gonna get. If I were him, I would probably just consider retiring. Take care of your body. You already make some really good money.
Yeah.
He had the neck injury, now the concussion. Call it quits. No need for further risk.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen either. I mean, I kind of have this like lingering feeling like it's got to be it for Ty. When he's come out there, he's been productive, so there is that to say. He hasn't been a ball dump, where he just gets a bunch of balls thrown to him and he ain't doing nothing with it. He comes in, makes an impact. But I don't know. It almost feels like the Colts want to be sleepers, right? Like they want to be this ho-hum team that's underperformed, and their quarterback's a little bit of wild card, and the coach is a little bit of a Looney Tunes, you know. And I don't, because otherwise I can't figure out what the presentation model is. When I come out and tell you I dedicated half of my RPOs to my running back and he didn't touch the ball for an entire quarter, it's just like I don't believe you. It's
Not
stupid.
just any running back. You're a
You're
pro running back.
Yeah. It's
You're
like
MVP candidate level running back.
it's like if I start a series with, like, he should be touching the ball minimum once a series. Once every 3 plays, you should literally be like, you should probably call him a number.
Yeah. Once,
Because if
once
you
every 3 plays, okay. Yeah, I'm good with that.
you're
Not touching
getting
the ball.
60-ish offensive plays, that's 20-ish touches for your bell cow. And I get it. People are gonna say, well, he did get carries, it's right. It's also like you got to keep the gas pedal on. You got to keep the fear of God in the opposing defense, that they are not afraid to just hand this ball off to this kid and let him carry him. You know what I mean? They'll let him do it.
Yeah,
Um,
I had like, when everyone was saying like, oh well, but the Bucks were putting up like 5-man fronts, and you have Lavonte David, and you have Devin White. Well, honestly, like, all the respect to Vita Vea and Devin White, but Vita Vea was banged up. He was coming off, I believe it was like a bone bruise or stuff like that. He was not a 100%.
right.
Devin White was also banged up. He missed like half the game with a hip injury. He was not at 100%. And even if they were at 100%, you have like this guy Jonathan Taylor. He's like, honestly, like, among the perhaps the most talented Colts player I have ever seen. Like, not the quarterback, but I would say, like, to be just to clarify, I never got a chance to see either Marvin Harrison or Reggie Wayne in his prime. So other than those two, he is the most talented player I have ever seen in a Colts uniform. So why not get him the ball?
My theory is that the Colts are trying to stay as healthy as they can, as long as they can. And if they can just squeeze into the playoffs, they believe that they can beat anybody. And again, I've been saying that that's poor messaging, and that, you know, I feel like, what I don't know, it's such a convoluted message, because when it works, man, it feels so good. But on the other hand, I have a feeling that this year, it's not gonna pan out. And it's like, I can never forget the video I saw of JJ Watt with his arm around Deshaun Watson's shoulder, and he says, "Hey, I'm sorry we wasted one of your years." And I think about that a lot when it comes
Yeah.
to team building, and how you approach, um, when your organization has like a marquee quarterback, and you aren't a perennial contender.
Yeah.
That's a failure of your organization. So obviously there's been a lot of turnover with the Texans. They can't keep any talent, and they're dumpster fire.
They are
Um,
basically, they are basically screwed. Yeah.
the in Jacksonville is effectively cursed. I actually don't think that there's anything they can do to win consistently. And then the Titans, I think, caught a gift horse in Derrick Henry, and then ran him into the ground.
Yeah.
So they're on the opposite end of the spectrum for me, in that, I think the only thing Tennessee's had going from them is Derrick Henry, where I think if the Colts use Jonathan Taylor more effectively, you can learn a lot more about what your other offensive weapons are capable of. And my case in point, is the deep ball to Doolin for the tutter. Actually,
Yeah.
how you get there, you run the ball effectively, because what
Yeah.
happens is that those safeties that ultimately have deep third are looking down into the backfield to make sure he didn't hand that fucking ball off to that race car, right? That absolute little Ferrari the Colts have in the backfield strikes fear in anyone playing the deep part of the field, because they know that if he cuts the opposite of me, I can't get an angle on him and catch him. He's going to beat me to the end zone. And it's happened. And like I said, the frustrating thing for me isn't, and I'll never be upset at someone's intentions. Right. So when Frank Reich sits down in front of people and spits out this nonsense that, you know, in this slew of plays where he didn't touch the rock, we dedicated half of those carries to him. Half those touches to him. And he went on to say something about when you run a single back offense, almost every team in the NFL runs a single back offense. I think there might be two that use a fullback. So
Ravens and Niners.
Yeah, like there aren't a whole bunch of teams that are using multiple backs. I think that the mistake here is not using split backs more often.
Yeah.
And forcing teams to not only defend the aprons, but defend the flats. And then also I think that the best rapport that Carson Wentz has is with Jack Doyle. So in my eyes, it's you have a running back that can fill your like power gaps, right? You and can run up the middle. Obviously, that's like a given. Every team can run up the middle; they just don't. But the Colts can run the football. You have Jack Doyle, who can absolutely get you a ball over the middle. Guys like Pittman can catch a ball over the middle. They got the bodies for that. But then force teams to decide, do you want to defend Taylor in the flat or Hines in the flat to the opposite side? I think is ultimately like pick your poison, and we're going wherever we've got the numbers, because you would set it up like a double screen pass. So you have blockers both ways, and then you practice it, and even running like a quick option either way. Or one of these things that we call it the tear motion is you take one of the backs and you motion him out behind your wide receivers, and you can also throw to that, or you can run a quick option to that. I'd like to see the Colts employ that, because I think that outside of the consistent rapport and good relationship that Carson Wentz has shown with Jack Doyle, I feel like the only other like good rapport he has is with those backs. And ultimately, if you want to superpower an offense, right, you want to supercharge an offense, put all the people he's got good rapport with on the field at the same time and make
that's just logic. Yeah.
So there's definitely things that Colts can improve on, and like you said, one of the things I want to make sure we talk about was that RPO stuff, because I feel like it's easier than we make it seem, but also that it gives too much credit to the teams that use it, because again, I think if you throw the ball 3 times and one of those times isn't a downfield throw, that you're dinking and dunking. You're not trying to score. You're just trying to find new and nuanced ways to run the ball. Like you don't want to admit you want to run the football. You just do this little dumb shit. And that's what hopefully you'll see bad teams play this thing where I call it running in circles, where they can't run the football, they can't hit a screen for yardage, and then they can't throw the ball downfield. So it just looks like their offense just sits and spins, and then they punt. Fortunately for us, like the Colts offense has been effective at moving the football, getting in a scoring range, putting points on the board. So that's not really the knock. Really, the knock is the Colts defense has regressed. It's cost us games. And then, like I said, just to finally beat that dead horse, like we've been saying, you can't have your biggest and brightest stars making the biggest, oldest mistakes. in games that you ultimately didn't have to win, if we're being completely honest, because Tennessee lost. So it was sort of like a wash week. But you don't have all those just hanging around, right? So this ends up
Yeah, it
being
was also
sort of a
not a
must win.
conference game, so
Yeah.
it was not like, it's like what they say, like if you gave me like if you told me like you can win one and lose one against the Bills and the Bucks, that's a good outcome, you know. And beating the Bills, like that was the must win game.
Right.
Colts won that, so I know it seems like the end of the world when you're like fresh off a loss, and especially one that you could have easily won.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, playoff wise, we are still in a really good spot because, you know, the Chargers, the Bengals, the Raiders, they still have to go up against each other.
Yep.
We
So
have like,
they're gonna lose
yeah,
steam. I think guys like I'd rather have a Carson Wentz than a Burrow or a Justin. Um, I just think that those young quarterbacks are more likely to get hurt in a playoff game than win one. And that again is leaning on they both have been hurt. Like they've both been hit the hell out
yeah,
of. So those teams I think are going to beat up in each other, and will put themselves out before it matters. And like I said, I think it's almost like a no deeds at all get punished, right? Because in this scenario, I feel like there's been gross mismanagement, and that to the degree, I don't know about to the degree of being fireable, but to the degree where we've talked about possibly handing off play calling to somebody else. Because I feel like being a head coach is a hell of a job. It's hard, very difficult to do that
yeah,
job. It's also very difficult to do that job and be the play caller. And I'm a fan of anytime I see a person in power show some humility. It's like it makes you love them, and you run through a brick wall for somebody that will say I don't know, you know. And that's sort of what I have the issue with Frank Reich, because if you really want to be technical, Frank Reich won a playoff game as an NFL
yeah,
quarterback and is now a head coach of an NFL team. And it shows you when you get into big game after big game after big game and you can't consistently get over the top on them, that it's like that outcome was a fluke, right? Backup quarterback comes in the playoffs down a bunch of points, it comes back and wins or whatever. I don't remember the scenario, but that I'm pretty sure they were losing and he came back and won that playoff game, right? And again, that's not a
yeah,
knock. I'm not saying like he didn't do nothing. Bro, he made it to the NFL. He was on the Bills. They made it to playoffs, and he made something happen when the starter
yeah.
got injured, right? But I'm saying that landed him here, and
Hmm.
when that's your pedigree, of being a clipboard holder until your card got pulled, and then you did your job well once, got you this. There's a great deal of humility and a great deal of respect to be earned, which could ultimately change the direction of your franchise.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
the
yeah,
Colts are not a premier destination for free agents because of the ego of their coach, of the unwillingness to say like, hey, this is a big job. This team cares a lot about mental health, right? We had this big mental health
yeah,
initiative
yeah.
within the Colts organization.
Kicking the
Ima-
stigma. Yeah,
Imagine what that says for that sort of thing. If Frank Reich comes out, has this big press conference and says, it's not media backlash. It's looking real hard at the duties of being a head coach in the NFL, and I've decided that's what's in this organization and team's best interest is that we pass off play calling to someone with a great deal of experience and
yeah,
success at doing it, and they just get some nasty ass play caller in here, somebody who's just gnarly at it, and has the feel because it is a feel thing. It's not something that you could just have a ton of experience at, and the great, you know, the grayest hair on the field is the one that's the play call. No, it's a feel thing. It's playing lots of online Madden and NCAA football as a kid, and learning like you can't run certain plays. They're expecting this shit. You know what I mean? Like and that's the kind of thing that I think we're going to keep having these kinds of conversations where it's like, man, the offense puts up 1,000,000 yards and points, but ultimately can't score at will, and the defense can't defend at, you know, when it has to. You can do that stuff early. You notice all the turnovers that kind of happen in the first 3 quarters, you know, and when you really got to have it happen, you can't, and it makes it frustrating to watch. But again, like you said, it's like it's not over. It's not like the season's over. Your odds of making playoffs are nil. They're still in the fight. You know, 5 games left, all of them winnable. One of those games is like the guaranteed loss. Legit, the Colts can just about play with anybody. That was the defending world champion that they had to score the 38 points on you to beat you. So I guess there is something to be said for that.
Yeah.
That was the defending champions. You did have an awfully big road win the week before in inclement weather
against Buffalo, one of the toughest teams in the conference.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely worth saying, like,
it's
hey,
not all bad. Yeah,
it's not all bad. You didn't have any major injuries, but like I said, I think before and also want to finish with that. Colts are an 8.5-point road favorite. I would bet everything I have that is not a close football game. I would also say when it comes down to I believe that the offense for the Colts has improved this season to the degree that, like, sitting here talking about Frank Reich stepping down as play caller or him ever losing his job, that percentage, the odds of that happening is going down.
Yeah.
I think that he's gaining favor, which is fine. That, again, I want Frank Reich to keep his job because I want to coach against him. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel. Like, I want a guy that I can pick apart, a guy that I can sit and say as a casual fan, I can watch your film and I can eat your coverage apart and I can pick your offense apart. You want those as opponents, potentially, or you want those for somebody you work for so you can help them fix it. But yeah, I think that there's that Frank Reich and this offense have done enough that he'll never give up that play calling. He's doing too good. And then and like I said, just kind of makes you laugh because it's like, I'm right, I'm right. Like, he's done good enough to keep the stick, and they're gonna continue to get in these dog fights that they don't necessarily have to get into when they could just put people away. And the older I get, it's like, what, Bill Belichick isn't the bad guy. He's not the bad guy. He's not Darth Vader. He's not Emperor he's not Emperor Palpatine. You know what I mean? Like, he's Tyrael from Diablo, the angel that comes back to guide you. That's Bill Belichick. He's the one still coming out here doing it. Brand new rookie quarterback that everybody said he's a doughboy. He ain't gonna do nothing. You got a noodle arm.
Look at them. Yeah.
So yeah, there's
are they the number 1 seed in the AFC right now?
In the AFC East.
The Ravens. No, yeah, AFC is for sure. No, the Ravens. But
I was gonna say that'd be wild
game. They have a 3-4 home record, 5-0 away. That's weird.
No, it's you know what it is? Ever since COVID hit, these games aren't getting nearly the attendance. And when the Patriots come to town, right, there's 2 schools of thought prevailing. Oh, it's the Patriots, we're going to get licked, right? Or, these guys suck. I ain't paying to go watch my team beat the Patriots. Like, I don't want to watch that shit. And then there's no theater at all. You go in there. I'm trying to remember who was talking about that. Maybe it was a Colts player. No, I don't think it was
Naheem
before.
Hines, I believe.
It was the Naheem Hines where he's talking about how loud it gets and how it does matter. Um, I mean, I don't know how long you've been a Colts fan if you remember the Peyton Manning era, but I'm telling
Yeah, I
you,
got like 1 or 2 years.
when during prime Manning era, when you went to a Colts game, when you had the ball on offense, you could hear a pin drop. And when it was on defense, I mean, it was sort of, a crescendo into third down, right? But um, back when the Colts were perennial contenders, it was insanity to go to a Colts game. I feel like it's toned down a little bit, but I really do feel like the one thing I do appreciate the hell out of any Indiana sports fans is that they're very real. They're not in their head, wishful thinking, sort of they've got this
Yeah, yeah, I got you. Yeah,
unobtainable vision of what their franchise is. On the contrary, I think that a lot of our fans, a lot of Colts fans feel sort of the same way we do. Um, the older I get, the more prevailing the thought that no one knows what they're doing and everyone's flying by the seat of their pants. It just becomes more evident as I get older. And you realize, we kind of joke about how the Colts are 5-1 after we put out a podcast. But think about what you are seeing when you watch one of our podcasts. We don't see two guys that are sitting here just ragging on people, players and coaches, and we don't sit here and talk about the officiating and none of that shit. We talk
yeah,
about the problems that you
bull.
see, where our lack of depth is, what we're not producing on defense, and what we are doing on offense, or what we're not doing on offense. So look for things like the Colts using a split back with motion into the flat behind the two receiver side. Look for the Colts RPO game to become more run based instead of more trigger happy, which is what it has been. It has been a trigger happy RPO system, and it needs to be more of a run heavy RPO system.
Yeah,
And one of the suggestions I would make, like, so Chris Ballard told us and Frank Reich told us they read our stuff, they listen to us. So if you are listening to me, one of the things that I would do if I felt like I had to create looks for my running back is use them in your screen game that isn't an RB screen. Line up and your single back set with most of your receivers to one side, probably like a trips or something, and then motion the back out into that side or away from your heavy receiver side,
yeah,
to force the defense to make decisions. So like I said, there are things that the Colts could be doing where you can end up with the ball in the guy's hand you want it in, but it doesn't have to be so binary as we're either handing it to him or throwing it to the screen or the flat, right? So there's he could be a dedicated receiver as well, and actually line up as a receiver and be an effective
yeah,
player. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of ways to get your running back involved without forcing that RPO into being the staple of your offense. So I think you'll see that change with the Colts. I think that I like our RPO early in a down sequence. Um, I would never run an RPO on third down. Um, just because I wouldn't want to, necessarily leave that decision up to my quarterback. Oh, you're gonna throw it on 3rd and 4 or third, you know what I mean? Like when you're
yeah,
running successfully against a team or whatever, or throw it on 3rd and 1 or whatever because he saw something. That's just bananas. So yeah, those are kind of the things that I think about that you could see the Colts improving on. Um, and obviously when you get a game like the Texans, it's so hard to get better week to week when the Texans are what you're preparing for. I hate to just say it like that, but it's just true. There's such a drop off between the last couple weeks and now preparing for the Texans in terms of like what potential there is. And I'm sure that the Colts will find a way to let the Texans hang around far too long before ultimately putting them away. is what I'm sort of figuring. Like blow them out early, let them come back, and then score a couple times late in the game.
Yeah, it's not what we wanna get.
I just think that's what you're gonna see. Is I don't know. On the one hand, it's like the Colts are again sort of due for a complete game, big win.
Yeah,
Haven't had one. But yeah, the Colts are still alive for the playoffs, and it's almost disappointing. You're like, I think I would have maybe this is an eval year, I think I might have done this a little different. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I think it starts with if I'm not trying to win my division, right? I'm not trading away that first round draft pick and then playing Carson Wentz all 17 games through injury. That's just nonsense.
it makes no sense. Yeah,
And then a lot of people are like, oh, but Carson Wentz was playing whether you bench him or not. And it's like, he sounds like a lunatic and I would fire him. What are we talking about? Like, it's in your best interest. It's in this organization's best interest to sit you. But as always, you could just force him. Let him be the knucklehead that would be being, and then he gets hurt. You get your first round pick back anyway. But yeah, it's like I've said, Frank Reich has bet about as much as you could possibly bet on another person in Carson Wentz, and so far he's
they are
enjoying. They're enjoying that relationship. So that just so the world understands that win or lose, that outing was seen as a productive, positive outing. Another one, right? And among a series of them, for Carson Wentz, he's had several strong games this year, several games in a row, even. But I think that he can be leaned on too much, and it's sort of like one of those things. Like, isn't it an obvious statistic when X happens, you're never winning? The Colts have two, right? I think it's if Taylor doesn't touch the ball like 23 or more times, Colts don't win. And if Carson Wentz throws it more than like 36 times, the Colts are going to lose. So it is a delicate balance. But that's the joy of getting to call plays, is sort of having it written down somewhere where you're like, we've called 12 pass plays to 4 runs. Hey, the next sort of down sequence, let's try to incorporate the run just to give it a little less disparity, right? Like that's completely within your control as a team. And again, I'm fully willing to hear the whole, there was a guy there and they've got Levante David and no, they had a 6-man front. Dude, every team is going to line up and try to shut down your run game. To what degree they're willing to go to do that, you have to be willing to find that out. And like I said, I'm gonna keep beating that dead horse. The Colts ran the ball. They 4.5 yards a clip is running the ball, and went away from it for a full half in a game you had control of. There's again, for one of the things that bothered me about that Frank Reich thing. So I want to close with this. We can end this thing. Frank Reich said something to the effect of, there's going to be people that don't like this, and this is just more of a philosophy. And then he went on to say the thing about the single back offense. That's called putting yourself in a corner, right? And getting defensive, and then making the most mundane ass point you've ever heard in your life that you're like, who only a fool would disagree with you here. Right. I can't remember what that's called, but that's called like some kind of thing, like you're being a thing. And that's what Frank Reich really did, was he lied. And then he painted himself in a corner and tried to get really defensive, and then said in a single back offense, you have to manufacture touches, and we didn't. And I felt like we tried to do that, but they were stacking the box and stuff. And it's almost like you took a defensive posture to make that point. I would have taken the defensive posture to say we ran the RPO instead of giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor and average 7 yards a carry. A lot of people will disagree with our RPO philosophy because we went away from Jonathan Taylor as a result. But when what you did, instead of giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor for 4.5 yards a clip, went for 7 yards on average, we're happy with that trade-off. Now I have no argument. Now I'm just left to sit there and go, yeah, 7 is more than 4.5, and he's correct to have done that based on what they did. And I can't sit here and say anything, but instead what he did was he does all this weird song and dance about 15 plays in the second half that were dedicated. Half of them were more than half were dedicated to Jonathan Taylor.
To JT, yeah.
And it didn't happen because Carson Wentz saw something that made him pull the ball and throw it. And then there will be these little sprinkles where a media member will kind of throw a bone to Frank Reich, and they're like, on this play, Stephen Holder, on this play, it looks like they really did put 10 guys in the box trying to fight the run. And you know what I mean? And it's just like, yep, it happens every now and they get you. You know what I mean? It happens, right? But on the whole, you literally marched down this field and scored at will the whole game. And then it's just like you forgot how to do that for a whole period of time. And again, he started off again by saying like, oh, in the second half, we drove down twice and felt good about what we were doing. And then completely went away from that after that. And it's just like, what? Like, okay, man. Like, all right. I mean, I get it. Like I said, it's sort of like I'm arguing both sides where I'm saying like on the one hand, it's like, yeah, he's right. But on the other hand, it's like, I would love to play against that. I would love to. That defense, beatable. Offense is going to be tough. Beatable, yeah. Offense is going to be pretty tough. Their offense is going to be good because, and I don't know who said this, but I saw this earlier today too, and it's worth like repeating. So I wish I knew who said it. What was it? When I think it was something like 5 of the last 6 games, you put up 31 plus. There's no conversating about the defense when the defense has given up more than 20 something odd points in 5 out of last 6 games, and you're letting people back in games and stuff like that. That's on your defense, and that doesn't really have anything to do with your offense. No, what was said that needed to be repeated was, look at the success the Colts are having on offense with this group of wide receivers.
Yeah, that also makes sense.
That's like a kind of something that will kind of get swept under the rug is how the Colts have a top 5 offense in the NFL with Ashton Doolin and Zach Pascal. No offense, love them, gotta have them. They're definitely important Colts players. When you have,
yeah, I get your point. Yeah, no, they are not especially like threats. I mean, they're okay, but they're
contributors.
Like defensive coordinators are not gonna like stay up at night thinking like, how on earth am I gonna cover this guy? Yeah.
Right. Well, the only way the Colts will ever find out what those players are capable of is to use them as intended, just as a wide receiver, and then every now and then they're going to burn somebody deep, you know what I mean? And it's just not going to be as consistent as it could be if it was a marquee guy. But I also think that can be what keeps other marquee wide receivers from wanting to come here. One, the Colts aren't really hip to take a shot on a wide receiver in free agency. They're definitely not trying to get older at the position. If anything, they're gonna go out and spend draft capital on that. So that's something to look forward to, is needing to protect your most important asset and then needing to provide him with appreciable weapons, knowing that you're probably going to lose TY at the least.
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
So it's something to keep kind of your eye on. Like, look at all the success you had with this group of wide receivers, knowing you're probably going to have to invest some capital in that at the expense of safety, tackle, for example. But also want to point out, though, this draft class upcoming has almost no buzz. So it is worth floating this, that the Colts were that good at scouting that they're kind of seeing the same thing I am, where I'm not seeing any quarterbacks with round one grades. I've heard of like a couple offensive linemen that are getting some buzz. There's like a pass rusher, but there aren't, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like this class is as dense with talent
Yes.
as they have been in the last couple of years anyway, specifically at like quarterback. And again, like the marquee positions, I foresee quarterback, offensive line, the pass rusher is like super imperative in the NFL. And I just think this is sort of like a middling to down year for those positions. So the Colts are hip to, in my eyes, like I said, it's either pans out, Carson Wentz gets you to the playoffs. He already beat the Bills, right? So it's like, beat the Bills.
Might as well happen again. Yeah.
What's to say you can't make it happen again? I've been saying the last few years, in order to win one of these playoff games, the Colts quarterback just has to have a little bit of mobility, right? He just has to be able to make a few plays a game with his feet. And then it just so happens Jonathan Taylor had a breakout year. So in my eyes, the Colts got what they needed to take the next step. I just think what they had to get out of some other pieces and players they haven't gotten. And like we've been saying, they kind of lost the games you can't really be losing and have a good feeling about stuff. And I don't like the idea of every game being like dire must win. I don't like what that does to my players' psyche. And I don't like the negative impact of what it could do to someone's career, right? That sort of like grind mentality. I don't like, it's like you're,
Yeah.
I don't like I think of the NFL as like once you get to the NFL, you're now showcasing your talent, and you want all your players healthy and running at full speed and playing the game like they were playing it like they were little kids, but just at a professional level. And with the Colts, with this grind sort of attitude, it's we're doing something that it's like we're doing it the hard way. Yeah, that's probably a good way to end it too. Right now, it feels like the Colts are playing football on the hard difficulty level.
On Madden, yeah.
And injuries on, and it's touch and go as hell. And in one game, by the way, against the Tampa Bay Bucks, I can never end a podcast when I want to. Quentin Nelson and DeForest Buckner went down. Right? Didn't Q and Buck come out? So those are your two hogs, your sort of your trench warlords. And when those guys come out, it's just sort of a thing. It's like like you grind so hard that the foundation starts to, you know what I mean? And then you look at your record and you're 6-6, right? It's figurative, right? But that's what I'll remember now that I've said it out loud. That's what I'll remember about the loss to the Bucks. Is that we ended that game 6-6, and the cornerstones of our offense and defense left the game. And I think it's sort of I believe it's emblematic of bad leadership or personnel mismanagement. When you're all pros, right, are breaking under the weight of the constant pressure. And I get it. Some people live and thrive off that pressure. And so maybe I'm not giving these guys enough credit. This is a situation that they thrive in. I like being I like it the way the Colts used to do it when Peyton was around. Do so good so early in the season that by the week 13 and on, it didn't even matter anymore. We won so much it don't matter. And maybe we can get back to that, where you've got the 1 seed locked down and you're 4 games ahead of the next team. Let's see if we can get everybody healthy to playoffs, shut people down a little bit, right? That's the dream, right? And then I feel like the Colts have this hubris or ego about them now, where they think we can sort of be this middling team and we'll still get to the playoffs. And if we can just make sure as many people are healthy as possible, we could beat anybody. I really think that's what they're saying on 56th Street.
That's not too far-fetched.
You know what I mean? So it's an interesting time to be a Colts fan, and of course we'll let you out of this so you can go. Well, I mean, you're definitely going to watch Hard Knocks and then listen to us. So, but yeah.
So yeah, let's go watch Hard Knocks.
Let's go watch Hard Knocks. Yeah, we're a little late. It's we went. It was long-winded today. This has been episode 14 of the Coltist. Mateo, I appreciate you being here with me, man.
Pleasure to be here. Yes, always. Nice way to end my Wednesday.
I appreciate you, man. We'll get you out of here. You can follow the Coltist on Twitter and Instagram, and we'll get this posted in an article on Stampede Blue talking about gambling for week. This is week 13.
30. Yeah.
Enjoy the games this week. We'll see you after this week's game.
Hopefully a Colts win. Yeah.
Yeah, big Colts win coming up in Houston.